There's a country on this planet that most Americans cannot find on a map. It is the fourth most populated nation on Earth. It has more islands than any country in history. It sits on top of more active volcanoes than anywhere else. And it speaks a language that, 100 years ago, did not exist. Most people in the US and Canada have heard of it. Very few could tell you anything real about it. And the things that are real about it are so strange, so massive, so hard to believe, that when you hear them, your first instinct is to think we made them up. This is Indonesia. And this is everything they never taught you. Let's start with something simple. Open Google Maps. Find Indonesia. Now look at how wide it is. From the western tip of Sumatra to the eastern edge of Papua. Indonesia stretches over 5,000 kilometers. That is wider than the continental United States. But here's the thing almost nobody realizes. Indonesia is not one landmass. It is 17,508 islands. 17,000 islands. The government of Indonesia doesn't even know the exact count, because some of those islands appear and disappear with the tides. Of those 17,000 islands, only about 6,000 are inhabited, which means there are over 11,000 islands in Indonesia where no human being permanently lives. For context, the entire Caribbean has 700 islands. Indonesia has 24 times that number, and uses less than half of them. When you spread those islands across the ocean, they cover a stretch of water larger than the continental US, Canada, and Mexico combined. One country, one government, one flag, 5,000 kilometers of open ocean. Most people, when they hear this, say the same thing. How is that even a country? That question, turns out, is exactly the right one to ask. In 1928, a group of young Indonesian activists made a decision that had never been made in the history of the world. They chose a language, not the language of the largest ethnic group, not the colonial language of the Dutch who ruled them, not the ancient tongue of the royal courts of Java. They chose Malay, a trading language spoken by merchants across the archipelago. And they decided, this will be our language. They called it Bahasa Indonesia, and they built an entire nation around it. Here's why that matters. Indonesia has over 1,300 distinct ethnic groups, each with their own language, their own culture, their own history. Javanese, Sundanese, Batak, Balinese, Bugis, Dayak, hundreds of others. If Indonesia had chosen the language of the Javanese, the largest group with 95 million people, every other group would have been second-class citizens in their own country. Instead, they chose a language that nobody owned, a neutral tongue, a language of trade and compromise. Today, Bahasa Indonesia is spoken by over 270 million people. It was engineered to hold a nation together, and it worked. In 1815, a volcano in Indonesia called Mount Tambora erupted. It was the largest volcanic eruption in recorded human history. In a single explosion, it released energy equivalent to 2.2 million Hiroshima-sized atomic bombs. 100,000 people died immediately. But that wasn't the worst of it. The ash Tambora sent into the atmosphere was so dense, so thick, that it blocked sunlight across the entire planet. 1816 became known as the year without a summer. In New England, snowfall in June. In Europe, crops failed across the continent. In China, monsoon seasons collapsed. Famines broke out across the northern hemisphere. A volcano on an island most Westerners had never heard of changed the weather of the entire Earth for a year. And Tambora isn't even Indonesia's most famous volcano. That title belongs to Krakatoa, which erupted in 1883, killed 36,000 people, and produced a sound so loud it was heard 4,800 kilometers away. In Australia, in India, on the island of Rodrigues near Mauritius, the loudest sound ever recorded in human history came from Indonesia. On the island of Borneo, which Indonesia shares with Malaysia and Brunei, there is a rainforest so ancient, so dense, so unexplored that scientists regularly discover new species inside it. Not insects, new mammals, new primates, new large animals. In 2017, researchers documented a species of orangutan that had never been seen before. They named it the Tapanuli orangutan. There are fewer than 800 left, living in a forest that barely anyone knew existed. And the forest itself is home to tribes who have had, by choice, no contact with the outside world. People who live in the rainforest of Borneo and Papua, who have never seen a car, who have never used electricity, who have their own languages, their own myths, their own understanding of the universe, completely separate from everything you and I have ever known. They are not relics. They are not lost. They simply chose a different world. And Indonesia, officially, lets them. Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, is home to 11 million people. It is also sinking, not slowly, not metaphorically. Jakarta is sinking into the ground at a rate of up to 25 centimeters per year in some districts. Experts believe that by 2050, 1/3 of Jakarta will be permanently underwater. The culprit is groundwater extraction. When you pump too much water from underground, the ground above it collapses. And so the Indonesian government made a decision that no government in modern history has made before. They are moving the capital to a brand new city built from nothing in the middle of the rainforest of Borneo. They're calling it Nusantara. Construction began in 2022. The government plans to relocate by 2045. Indonesia is building a capital city in a jungle because their old one is disappearing into the sea. If that happened in the United States, it would be the only thing anyone talked about for a decade. In Indonesia, most of the world didn't even notice. Indonesia is not a small story. It is the 4th most populated country on Earth. It is the largest archipelago nation in history. It sits on the Ring of Fire, the most volcanically active region on the planet. It contains some of the last unexplored jungle on Earth. And it is quietly, methodically, sinking, rebuilding, and reinventing itself. All while most of the world looks somewhere else. That changes now. If this video made you see Indonesia differently, leave a comment below. Tell me what surprised you most. I hid something in this video that almost no one catches. If you found it, you'll know.